Hey, Tyler.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Awesome, man. Sorry.
You got a skateboard back there. I love it.
Yeah, that's it's a sore subject. And by sore, I mean literally my ankle sore right now from a little incident like 6 months ago on it.
Doing some ollie kick flips.
Not quite. Not even close. It wasn't even this one. It was my videographer, Pablo. He got one of those like powered ones, those electric
Yeah.
ones. And he was
The
just
one wheel.
not the one wheel. It's a full 4-wheel skateboard, like a little bit smaller one, but thing flies. I was in meetings all day long, and I was coming out in a full suit. He was getting it out of the box. He had just gotten it in the mail, and I was like, man, let me see that thing. We go out in the parking lot, and I jump on it and just hit it. And I'm just flying across the parking lot, scared to death. I'm starting to go towards a downhill. I was like, I got to bail. So I jump off. And I jumped off successfully, but then in my head, it was headed towards this curb, and I was thinking, man, he just got this thing. I don't want to bust up the front end on this curb. So I tried to kind of hop back on just to like stop it, and just completely snap my ankle. And ended up at the ER, and it's, yeah.
And what did your wife say?
My wife was pissed.
Yeah, my wife would be.
Like, I got zero compassion, and I was in a ton of pain. Like, I mean, it blew up. Like, I mean, it was really
We give them so much support and so much compassion, and then the second we have a little mess up,
I know.
Welcome to the Insurance Dudes, a podcast for insurance agency owners, helping us to think of different ways to optimize our business and our lives.
What really interests me personally is I love the story of where you came from, and how you were able to overcome those demons that everybody, we all get in our heads.
Sure.
You can't do it. And then, your insurance background is a killer story. So
Yeah. Let's just dive right in. Really, my story is pretty boring up until about 4.5 years ago. I mean, raised in a good house, and school was great. Got pretty good grades, played sports, that whole deal. I went to Clemson University, came back to Greenville, South Carolina after school, got married immediately, and went right into work. And things were going great. Things were going awesome. Along with that was, really getting a big head and thinking I was king of the world because things were going great. And, I kept having this feeling as though, things can't go well forever. Like, something at some point is going to happen in my life. And I started thinking about it more and more and more. And lo and behold, life did happen to me. I had a failed marriage, a failed business, and found myself in a really bad place, rock bottom, as cliche as that sounds, but was completely broke and in debt and out of shape and depressed. And, having gone through the failed marriage, I had a spouse that had an affair, and that as a man crushes your confidence. A failed business crushes your confidence. And those two things basically happen simultaneously, give or take a few months. And, I spent about 2 years just playing the blame game, just playing the victim. I went from sales job to sales job, not really putting any effort in, and using that as an excuse, this fear of going all in, because I didn't want it to be taken away from me again. And
Right.
so I used this excuse of, when I would inevitably get fired or I would quit, and people would ask me like, "Hey man, what happened to that new thing you're doing?" It didn't work out. If I would have tried, I would have killed it, but I wasn't really into it, wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't really trying at all. Just kind of use that as an excuse over 2 years, really. And finally just had this moment, what do you call it? Taking ownership, or this aha moment, or whatever phrase you want to put around it. It was as cliche as it sounds, but it really was taking a look at myself and realizing that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, based on the decisions that I had made, based on the things that I had done, based on the way I was living my life, and that every single thing that had happened to me, every single thing that I had done, it was all my fault. And the moment that I came to that realization, finally, it was like somebody took handcuffs off of me. It was liberating, it was freeing, and it was full of hope and encouragement, because I figured if I got myself into this situation, as bad as it was, I could get myself out of it. And that's my biggest encouragement to people everywhere, is that, you got yourself to wherever you are, good or bad. And the same power that you had to get yourself into that situation, you can get yourself out of it. And really, the variable of being able to do that is work, and the amount of work you're willing to put in. And one of my favorite lines that I kind of describe myself as is, I'm an ordinary guy doing extraordinary things by my willingness to put in the extra, which is just my willingness to work harder than most people, the majority of people. And the encouragement in that is understanding that, you don't have to go invent some new way of selling insurance. You don't have to build some new way of, with Allstate, you've got a system, for those that are listening that are in that business. But whatever you're doing, if whatever career path you're on, there's a system more than likely that has been created either by you or somebody else. And you don't have to recreate that. You don't have to go figure out a new way of doing it. You just have to do what you know to do the ordinary things, the normal things, the things that you're supposed to do, but just go do more of it than anybody else, or more of it than you've ever done. And ultimately that will always turn out positively.
Totally.
And so that's what I did. I, started what I call waging war on personal change. I call it waging war because I was in a really bad place. And I knew that as bad as things were, it was going to take a lot to get me out of it. And so it wasn't just, I started to grow myself, or I started to, work on self-development. It was really waging all that war on personal change, on becoming a different person from the inside out, starting with my body, and then into my mind with all the books and podcasts and videos that I was consuming every day, the information from the mentors that came into my life, and then, my relationships, and then ultimately my business. It was around that time that some mentors came into my life. How, I don't know. Why, I don't know. But, it was one of those things where they saw more in me than I saw in myself at the time. My confidence was still just beat up. And they started just pouring life into me and confidence into me. They were in the insurance business, and that's really the only reason I'm sitting here in front of you as someone that's in the insurance industry. I'd kind of jokingly say if they were in the rubber band business, I'd be on this podcast talking about this rubber band empire that we've built over the last few years. But they were in insurance, and they gave me an opportunity to come work with them. And I took that opportunity, and for the first time, just put my head down and went all in. We were at a position with our company at that time where they'd been around for about 3 or 4 years. They had agents across the country, but they really needed the Roger Bannister. They needed somebody to go out there and run the 4-minute mile and show people what was possible. They needed somebody to take the system that had already been created and implement an insane amount of work into it to show people what would come out the other side. Because people just didn't believe that you could go sell 50 policies in a week. They didn't believe you could go sell 100 policies, life insurance policies in a week. And so they told me, they're like, we need you to go do exactly what we say. Don't try to do anything on your own. Just do exactly what we tell you to do, but go do more of it than anyone has ever even contemplated before. And so it wasn't long until I had my first 50 policy week, 100 policy week. I did 238 policies in 4 days one time. I did 297 policies in 10 days consecutively one time. And lo and behold, now 4.5 years later, our top 10 each week, you have to have over 100 policies to be in the top 10. And it gave people that inspiration that, wow, I didn't realize if I did 3X, 4X, 5X, that 3X, 4X, 5X results would be produced from that. And now it's changed the way, we run our business. It's changed everything about the landscape with which we coach our agents. And it gave me the opportunity over those, last 4.5 years to become now part owner of that agency. We've got, over 100 agents across the country, and, to step into more of a coaching, training, teaching, leading role now, which I love. But, going from being flat broke to getting in the insurance business, 12 months later, made like $303,000 commissions. 12 months later, 450. 12 months later, 650. And then, last year was the year I became part owner of the company. We did like 8 million in revenue last year. And so, it's a crazy story, but again, there's nothing special about me. Like there's no particular skill that makes me great at what I do. I'm just willing to put the work in and let that speak for itself.
And the,
But that is
and the,
special, right? I mean, overcoming those demons in our heads that tell us we can't. I was just talking to somebody about this, and I was talking about how we're really at battle with ourselves. Like there's a way to do everything. There's a way to do anything. If you want to achieve something, somebody's done it. There's a path for that. We know the steps we have to take every day. But for some reason, we tell ourselves things in our head that make it impossible for us.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is just trying to avoid the discomfort, avoiding the things that are difficult. So we use these things to get in our own head as a way to occupy our brain from from thinking about all those things that we know we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I think the same way. Recently, I've really been thinking a lot about this idea. You hear people say like, "Well, I don't need a house like that," or "I don't need to drive a car like that. I don't need to have a watch like that." Like, sure you do. You just
Yeah.
not you've just beaten yourself down to where you've come to the realization that you're never going to be willing to put the work in to get it. And so you have disguised that now and maybe even truly believed it now that you don't want those things or that you don't desire or need those things. But it's not true. Like you would absolutely love to live that lifestyle or have those things. And so I just want people to be able to start dreaming bigger again. I think people are now just settling for mediocrity and settling for these, small lives that has nothing to do with their capability or their potential and has everything to do with, this level of effort, level of life that they've just accepted as is what it is. And it's
Yeah.
just, to me, it's so sad because, it's not just the material things, it's the impact they can make, the people they could help. Yes, sure, it's not about all about the money. You want to help a bunch of people, you need a lot of money to help a bunch of people.
Right.
And the more money you have, the bigger impact that you can make. And I think it's a really big problem that I want to make a little bit of a mark on improving.
And you were mentally at that place where you didn't think you could do it. You were beat up. A lot of stuff happened in your past. What were the steps that you took? The simple steps, not, I mean, everybody hears about these big transformations, and then that becomes, somebody's going to listen to this and be like, dude, there's
Yep.
no way I'm selling 300 life policies in 10 days. Like, there's just no chance. So what were those little mental steps that you took?
Mental steps. Yeah, I think it's important to take a step back and look at that progression. That the first thing I did was I changed my body. I think people, again, they disguise and they beat themselves down to ultimately maybe even believing that your health and wellness plays no role in business and plays no role in fulfillment and happiness. It's just not true. And I would love to say that it was this like altruistic thing at the time that made me do that, but I was recently divorced and found myself single and obese. And I was like, that is not a good look for being single for the first time in forever. So I was like, crap, I got to get in shape if I want to ever attract a member of the opposite sex again. But through that process, you start to build your confidence and you start to build this belief in yourself and you start to think, man, I think I may be capable of more than I'm, settling for right now. So, whether that's someone that's at rock bottom in that area of life or in all areas of life and is looking to start, it's a great place to start. But it could be someone that has success in the other areas and still that's one area that's lacking. You will never reach your full potential without your health and wellness, fitness being a major component of it. It's just not possible. And so, that was the first step. And so mentally it was really auditing the people I was hanging around with. I'm so intrigued by, Ed Milet's been talking a lot lately about this idea of looking at your identity or your standard as a thermostat. Now, whatever your thermostat, whatever your identity is set at, let's just say you're at 70 degrees. one of the ways that you can ultimately increase that is by surrounding yourself with people that are of a higher temperature, of a higher degree, the way they're living their life. And by just simply being around those people, your temperature is going to raise. And that's something that I did. These mentors were the first people that came into my life, but through my relationship with them, and quite frankly, through social media, this circle of influence, these people that you surround yourself with, don't have to be physically in front of you. They don't have to be sitting across from you at dinner or coffee. They can be the people that you're allowing to pour into you through podcasts, through YouTube series, through books, through audiobooks. And ultimately just auditing every single thing that you're allowing in. And when you really take audit, you realize the things that don't serve you. Like, I quit really watching TV almost altogether. I never watch the news or anything like that, which my wife gives me a hard time about. She's like, you need to know what's going on in the world. I'm like, not really. Doesn't affect me. I remember that last time there was the big solar eclipse. Like, I didn't know until everyone was like running outside, and they're like, how do you not know about this? I was like, how would I know? I don't know. But it's, all that stuff is just, it's all negative, and it's all, we don't realize how much of an impact negative stuff has on your brain, and ultimately your body, and then ultimately the results that you're getting. And so it was taking a hard audit of all the things I was allowing in, and then the people that I was allowing, in my life, and that I was spending most time with. And that was a difficult process. And it's something I've really haven't talked a lot about lately, but, I lost a lot of friends, which is really unfortunate. Um, it's something that, it's something that quite frankly keeps me up at night from time to time, when things happen, because it was nothing against them. Like, they're fantastic people. It was just a decision that, I only had so much capacity. And as I was adding people and adding people and adding people, just by process of elimination, it wasn't a choice where like I had a draft and like listed out every person I'm, acquaintances with or friends with. And yeah, you didn't make it. It's just, it's slowly phased out over time. And it's certainly something that I don't feel great about, but I still know was one of the biggest catalysts for me getting to where I am today. And so at the end of the day, it's worth it, but man, it's not easy. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of stuff you hear these days, especially like from Gary Vee and people on social media about like, cut cut the negative people out. I don't care if it's your mom or your brother or your best friend. Like, yeah, I get it, but it's not that easy. Like, you don't want to burn bridges. And, when people's feelings are involved, like, you got to be thoughtful through that process. But it was surrounding myself with others. And then the other way to raise your thermostat is to just pack a ton of effort, a ton of activity into short periods of time. And so the schedule that I kept, like, to me, it almost comes out as hyperbole when I say I worked the hours that I worked. Like, whether it was 10 hours or 22 hours, it's almost like the same thing. It's just a lot. People they don't really register anything over 10. They're like, man, that's just a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why I created my daily vlog last year, was because I wanted to show people. And that's why I do a lot of live content, so that there's the timestamp from back in those days where I was going into meetings at 11 p.m. and then wasn't getting out till 1 and going into the meeting the next morning at 5:30. And people could actually see the amount of hours that were put in. But that's not sustainable long term. And so I would just cram as much effort as I possibly could into 3 or 4 days. And then, Friday I would sleep in and have a lighter day. The weekends I would have lighter days. Then I would do that for 3 weeks, and then I would have a week that was a little bit lighter. And then I would do that for 3 or 4 months. And then I would have a month that was a little bit lighter. But every time you cram a ton of effort into a short period of time, it's kind of like that watermark on a pool. When you flush a bunch of water into a pool and it raises up, creates that new watermark. And when the water goes back down, that mark is still there. And it gives you the ability to, when you go back to your normal flow of operation, your normal activity level, it starts to seem like it's not that bad. You're like, oh, well, I could do a little bit more now, because I was doing this insane volume, insane work. I can do a little bit more now. Then every time you do those little spurts of just crazy effort, when you go back, you go a little bit higher in your level of activity and your level of results that you're getting. And so those were two, big things. The third, though, was being incredibly coachable and teachable and having no ego through that process. Like, I was just a blank slate. I was like, tell me exactly what to do. Tell me exactly what to say. I'll say it. I'll do it. And that's it. Like, I won't question it. And a lot of that was because of the trust and belief that I had in those mentors. Um, I didn't know them at the time very long, but I could just tell that what they were telling me was true. I just believed them. It was the integrity behind, what they were saying and how they were saying it and the stories that they were telling me. And, I think back to that time now, and I'm just so grateful that I went all in and did what they told me to do, because, man, especially given the fact that where I was in life, like, it would have been so easy just for it to be one more sales opportunity that I squandered. And I'm so glad that I really, really took hold of it. But I think that's it. It's being coachable, teachable, surrounding yourself with positive people that are doing better than you, that can pull you and not you pull them. And then just cramming insane work ethic and work effort into short little periods of time, short little bursts of time. And, next thing you know, you look up a year later and you're like, holy crap, I don't even recognize the person that I see in the mirror. I don't even recognize my bank account. I don't recognize where I'm at in my business. And it's just that, exponential growth over time.
I think one of the hardest thing for an Allstate agent is to sell life insurance.
Yeah.
We all have agencies. Honestly, our goals for the year is as low as 12 policies on a 12-month rolling basis.
Yeah.
Up to 18. And everyone's complaining, struggling. I love that you can you crush so much in a small period of time.
Yeah.
What are a couple little tidbits, a couple techniques just on the technical side of things?
Yeah.
That helped you?
So the biggest thing, just from it's the key, but it's not so detailed and technical, but it's the key is creating a niche or identifying a niche that's insanely narrow. And so I think that's what, especially, the Allstate agents that are listening, watching, you try to be all things to all people, you end up being nothing to no one. Anybody that walks in the door, anybody that you're in contact with, yeah, that can be my target market. And yeah, I've got some product that's great for you, but it's really developing the exact, almost like an avatar of like what that ideal customer or client looks like, and then building all of your systems around reaching just those people. And so every script, what you say, how you say it, down to every little word, like we have rewritten and modified our scripts 500 times because someone in some part of the country started saying something a little differently, started having good results. We tested it in a couple different places, and then ultimately made a change in our script because it was better. Again, there's no ego even from the top down. If someone figured out a better way to do it, we're all ears. But down to what we wear, how we stand, how we sit, the materials that we show them, the things that we hold in our hand, the bag that we carry, like everything is tailored around understanding that group of people better than they understand themselves. And to me, there's no manipulation involved. There's nothing sleazy or, about it. It's the ultimate form of respect to me. It's no different than if someone speaks Spanish and I come walking in trying to sell them a life insurance policy speaking German. It's not going to be very effective. But if I learn Spanish just to be able to cater a message to that person to get them to a buying decision quickest and most effectively, and that's the ultimate form of respect that I'm showing that person. And that's what we've done is we've created a scenario where we give people all the information they need very, very quickly. We plant a little seed of doubt, then offer them an immediate solution to where they can make a buying decision quickly. And, it very much becomes order taking at that point. I could wake me up in a dead sleep. I could recite every part of every script, and then it's just, so what do you want to start with? Like that's literally that is literally my close in every single meeting, over 8,000 policies in 3.5 years. I even do that with my shoulder. I shrug my shoulders. I go, so what do you want to start with? So what do you want to start with?
Nice and light.
And they'll say, oh, the number one objection we all get is, I need to think about it, or I need to talk to my spouse.
Right.
And this is a good, tactical tip here. First, you're going to agree with them, completely understand. Like, I would have to talk to my spouse about this as well. The majority of people I've met with today said they needed to talk to their spouse, but here's why they went ahead and signed up anyways. We're just going to fill out the paperwork and submit the application. You're not going to pay anything today. We can set your payment out, week, 2 weeks, whatever you need. We're just getting the process started today. And then literally immediately, so what do you want to start with? So what do you want to start with?
Right back at it.
And there's times where I've said 4 or 5 different, answers to someone's objection, but it all goes back to, so what do you want to start with? And I don't even look them in the eye. I'm looking down and pointing on the brochure exactly what I want them to start with. And I'll just sit there in silence, like, what do you want to start with? And and they're like, I guess 250,000. Sure. You and your spouse. That's another really, really, really good line. You and your spouse, almost like it's just an afterthought. Like, of course it's 2 policies, not 1, right? So for every person I'm meeting with, it's, we're selling 2 policies, hopefully. Any kids over 18, we're definitely trying to sell them policies. So I can sit down with one person and sell, 3, 4, 5 policies potentially. But it's just, it takes, what we've done is we've taken every sales aspect out of the equation. We're there to serve. We're there to provide them with a solution to a need that they have. We're not there to sell them anything. We even tell them, like, look, if you need coverage, great. If you don't need it, great. Either way, I'm indifferent. My job is just to simply educate you on what you have available. And truly believing that, because, as you get into the business and you learn your system, you'll learn eventually what your conversion ratios are, your close ratios are. It's just a numbers game at that point. Like, you just have to trust in those conversions. So I know, like, if I'm sitting down with someone, I've gone through the pitch, and if they're giving me a bunch of objections, I'm literally trying to get them out of my face as quickly as possible, because I know there's 5 more people that I need to get to that are getting less interested by the second. And that it's not my job to force them to buy. It's just my job to get the information out and let the numbers do the rest. And I think a lot of people, they get so caught up, they get this commission breath, they get this desperation, which people can feel and sense and smell from a mile away when you really need that sale. Like, I had to have 12 policies this year and I've only got 10. It's December 15th. Like, I really, like, what can I do to make you buy? They can sense that from a mile away. But when you genuinely are, what's that word? Indifferent. Like, I love that word, indifferent. When you genuinely look and feel indifferent, like, I don't care. Sometimes I'll add, like, it doesn't matter to me. It certainly matters to your family. It doesn't matter to me. I'm completely indifferent. When they can actually feel that, take that to the extreme. Like, when they're looking at, well, I'm thinking, should I do the 200 or the 100,000? Like, do the 50. Why don't we just start with the 50, and then, later, if you need to add more, add more. Every single time I do that, they go, you're right. Let's do the 200.
Yeah.
Like, because you're being a good person. Like, you're not trying to put them into something that they're uncomfortable with. I'm like, shoot, let's start at the lowest. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So I think you take, like, nobody likes to be sold, but everybody loves to buy. That's one of my favorite lines. Nobody likes to be sold, but everybody loves to buy. And we all know what it feels like when someone's trying to sell us. And if you can eliminate that, completely off the table, to where you're just having a conversation and they know that, there's no pressure whatsoever. Even down to the, so what'd you want to start with? That idea of starting is huge too. Starting. What do you want to start with? It's like the least path of resistance. It's like, I'm just starting. We can always, because they can't always change it, cancel it, whatever. We have very, very low cancellations, chargebacks within our organization. But what do you want to start with? What do you want to start with? That's what it's all about.
Tyler, how much of the process actually is needs based, where you're uncovering what they need, and it's such a
because of the way our system's created and the volume that we're doing, I mean, it sounds a little bit silly, but like they all need it. So with what we're doing, like we sell one product and we sell a lot of it, and we know that they have other coverage, and so we don't have any. We're certainly not, ignorant to the fact that people have tons of different coverages from different places. Their brother's a State Farm guy, and there's, uncle used to work for Mass Mutual. All these things. Like they've got plenty of coverages, but to me, that's where it gets into planting a little seed of doubt, not creating like this gigantic concern that they're going to need to really sit down with all of their stuff. And I'm going to need to look at all this over, and I'm going to need to talk to my other advisor, and I'm going to talk to my other agent. And I'm going to really need to sit down and figure this out. I'm just planting like a little seed of doubt of like, I never really thought about that. And then immediately offering them a solution that seems so seamless and so effortless. And again, they're just starting there, and it's just adding to what they already have. Another line that I really love that I use not all the time, but probably 30% of the time when I feel like somebody needs it, is I'll say everybody gets to choose the legacy that they leave behind. So what do you want to start with? And it's a tough one to say no thanks. But yeah, so I mean, needs analysis for us, because we're not doing some huge strategy and looking at all the different things. It's not really high on the radar. We just know that there's yet to be a beneficiary upset because they had too much life insurance, and that's just a fact. And I feel extremely, extremely good about that when I go to sleep at night.
That's cool, man. Craig, any questions?
I
feel like I'm sandbagging all the questions.
There's just so much to this story, and it's so powerful. And I'd like to really understand the psychology of that first year, because when people, you get to this thing where you tipped, you said, "Fuck this, I can't do it anymore." Right? Yeah. I have to make the change, and you made that commitment. But often what happens is, you start off, you're all passionate about it, excited, and then the results don't come immediately. Yeah. And that's where there's such a significant drop off. And when we hire people, you get them in, they're all fired up, train them, and then, they didn't sell 20,000 in the first week, so they bounce, or they're like, right? So how did you overcome that? And how did you get to that mindset?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. First, I'll say, there's something very different, interesting, and something I love about a scenario when it has to work. There was no contingency plan. Like I had no safety net. I had to borrow the money to get started in the business. And my wife was not excited about me going into a commission only business, given my stellar track record, time that I had been with her, and sales job to sales job. She's like, "There's no salary. I mean, so you're not gonna make it." But so when it has to work, I love contracting agents that it has to work. When I can tell that that they've made that transition, they're on that upward trajectory, or if they've they have to move to a new territory. I love when people have to move. If you're moving across the country, moving to another state, like you're gonna make it work. And so I think that for me was special in that, there was no other option but to do whatever was necessary. People always find time and find the ability to do stuff that's important to them. And that's why I challenge people a lot. Like, you'll have agents that say, "I want to make 250 grand this year." I'm like, no, you don't. Like, what do you mean I don't? I'm like, look at what you're doing. Like, look at your numbers. You could care less about making 250. I don't even know that you're really that concerned about making 150. Like there's a big difference between, this ambition and motivation and like, goals that we say that we have, but, ultimately our activity level is what, proves it. And I push people on that. Because it's the only measurement that we have, especially when you have agents in different parts of the country. Like the only thing we can look at is the numbers, and the numbers don't lie. They are a great indicator of your actual motivation, your actual intention. So that's certainly big. I think with bringing on new agents and that issue of them coming on board and being gung ho and super motivated and then just fizzling out, I think it comes down to the system that you have, and you have to do everything in your power to get a check in their hand as quickly as possible. You got to do everything you can, like whatever that means, for your business. Like you got to get, because that's the only way you build the ultimate belief. Like the only way they're going to truly buy in is when they went out, they put some effort in, and they got a result and they got a check. That's when things start to click. And so for me, it was the perfect scenario, especially based on how fast paced and transactional our business is. For someone that's confidence had been beaten down for so long, to all of a sudden get in the scenario where I put an effort, I get a reward, put an effort, get a reward, put an effort, get a reward. It was like my confidence just kept, going through the roof, and I felt unstoppable. I literally felt unstoppable. And that's an addictive thing for me. I became very addicted to this process of, man, I did way more work this week and I got way more results. I wonder if I did even more work next week. Is there a diminishing return at some point where like I put in this many hours and it's really not going to make that much of a difference anymore? Is there somewhere where this stops? Is there some type of saturation at some point? And just could never find it. So to me, that's super important, is making sure that people build that belief by getting paid, getting a check as quickly as possible. And a lot of times, the reason why that's so difficult is because of the lack of willingness, the lack of desire, and the lack of effort that the leader and manager is willing to put into that person. We forget how difficult it was when we first started. And, if you can go out in the field with that person and make those calls for them and with them, if you can do those first appointments for them and with them, where maybe you sold that first policy, but they're getting the commission, but it was a process that you guys went through together in order to build that person's belief, knowing that they'll be able to go then and do that themselves later on, then that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of effort. And, usually when people get to a leadership position, they're like, well, I don't need to go out in the field. Why would I go out and do that? Well, because that's what's necessary to create a big organization that's doing a lot of volume. And so just like anything else, it's the things that ultimately pay off are the things that are difficult and the things that take a lot of effort. And that's just the unfortunate reality.
No,
with life.
that's awesome. Is that what they did with you when you first came on? They just
yeah. I mean, they made so my mentor, one of my best friends, we made our first day of calls, and he would call, I would call, he would call, I would call, he would call, I would call. And then the first time I closed somebody on the phone, he said, all right, we're done. I'm never calling for you again. And then I made calls the rest of the day. And then when I went on my first, appointments, he went with me, and he would do one, I would do one. He would do one, I would do one. And he would be there while I was doing it. So we were able to kind of, have a debriefing afterwards of, what I could have said better, or the areas that I could have improved on, or different things that he picked up on. And did one day of that, and that was really all I needed. It put some commission in my bank account, and was able to repay the person that loaned me the money to get started, and it was off to the races. So yeah, and it's something that we've over the last 6 months have really gone back into fully within our organization. It's difficult because we've got agents spread out all over the country, but now that same person that did that for me now flies out to their location, to their territory, and goes through that exact same process in the beginning with them. And we're seeing incredibly greater results because of it. It just builds that belief. Like worst thing that can happen is they jump on the phone the first day and get beat up. Then that phone weighs 1,000,000 pounds the next day. So if you can have some success,
help. right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Like you feel like our big thing with our business is, we don't, we want people to be in business for themselves, but not by themselves. And we want them to know that, you know, the support that they have is real and it's tangible, and that we're willing to invest in them. The problem with the insurance industry is it's just a big churn and burn factory of let's hire quickly, see who hangs around for 6 months, and then we'll start investing in them a little bit. I've been blown away by the lack of training and support that the majority of agencies give their agents. Like literally just like allowing them to use the carriers for support and training. Like, I don't know, here, go to the wall that has all the different carriers, folders and information on it, and give them a call and learn how to sell the products, which is crazy, in hopes that if they hang around 3 to 6 months, then we'll start doing a little bit of training. Which, they've done for so long, and I guess it's been successful, but it's certainly not the way that we want to go about doing our business. So we invest heavily on the front end, but the reason we're able to do that is because we've refined our recruiting process to where we've got it down to a science. So we know that the person that we bring on has a high probability of success, so that we're willing to put that investment into them.
I love it. I love how detailed you guys are, and I think that's goes to show like the level of effort that people are willing to put in.
Yeah.
A lot of people will, they with their agency, they just kind of go and don't have a plan and don't try to refine it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, it's like, I hope I can sell those life policies, but
Yeah. I mean, you got to have a plan. And the key to that the majority of people are missing is you got to get clarity. Like, people don't need more motivation. They need clarity on what they actually want, like what success looks like for them, what their goals actually are. And then you can build a plan and reverse engineer that to figure out, okay, how many calls is it going to take for me to set that many appointments, to sell that many policies, to make that much commission, to buy whatever I want to buy or do whatever I want to do. But unless you get crystal clear on what that end game is, how are you gonna build a map when you don't even know the destination? It doesn't work like that. So you just have people that are just kind of floating through life, and going to work and doing something and hoping that something ends up you know accumulating into something bigger at the end of the year. And it's just kind of year after year after year, and then you look up and you're like, crap, what have I been doing in
right.
the last decade? So clarity is big. And another thing that we really focus on with our agents and on is the thriving in all areas of life. So I coach our agents, the ones that participate. It's not mandatory, but the ones that participate, I coach them in this process we call life goals, which we split their lives into 4 areas. Business is one, but mind, body, and relationships are the other 3. We set 3 goals in each of those areas, and they're 90-day goals. And then I do a monthly call with them on Zoom where I hold them accountable. So we sit
That's
down and I
awesome.
say, hey, so how was your date night Friday? And they're like, oh, well, you know, this past Friday it didn't happen. I'm like, okay, well, on this sheet here, it says mandatory date night every Friday. So, why didn't it happen? Well, we couldn't, our babysitter was sick. Cool. I mean, I get that. Let's get on care.com and find you a second or third babysitter. That way you don't run into that issue. Like, you got like an arsenal of people you can call. And let's, right now plan something pretty cool for this Friday because, you missed one. So now you need to have like a special one, and just hold people accountable. That's the biggest thing I think people are lacking after clarity is accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability from their manager, leader, but accountability in all the different areas of life. Like, I've made such a commitment in my life to putting either systems or people in place to hold me accountable to all the different things that I want, and that I want, and that I'm working towards. Because without it, I just don't believe a human being can hold themselves accountable if they're trying to do great things. Like, I just don't believe it's possible. There may be someone that's like, I'm insanely disciplined and I'm the best. It's great. But I just don't think the average person has the ability to hold themselves accountable to those things. At the end of the day, you will, get lazy. You will figure out an excuse that becomes believable, and you won't do the things that you know you're supposed to do. And so to have, the smallest bit of accountability, like this year I started working out with a trainer for the sole purpose of, I hated working out in the mornings, always have hated working out in the mornings, but realized, I have a daughter now. I need to spend time in the evenings with her and not at the gym. So the only way I could fit the gym in is in the morning. Hate doing it. Can't stand it. But the fact that there's somebody there looking at their watch going, man, it's 6 o'clock. Where the heck's Tyler? Just that alone gets me out of bed and there, because I don't want to, let him down. And I still hate it. Like I'm still not a huge fan of, versus working out in the evening, but I do it. And I think that's, to me, the key to reaching that kind of that unlock for that next level is every area of your life trying to find accountability. And it's crazy. So, we've got 47 agents that I coach through this process. We got like 60, 70 that don't participate. The 47 that did over the last 8 months have produced 26.7% more volume.
Wow.
Which in our world is like $51,000 more a year that they'll make. And the craziest thing about that is, of those 4 areas, business is the least of which we talk about. The very least, like almost an afterthought, because I always have it at the end. And we've always talked so much about our relationships and mind and your body, that it's like, oh crap. So how are we on that goal for what you're going to do this week? Okay, cool. Got to get on the next one. But like, who would have thought that when you're, in great shape and your relationships are in check and your mind's in a good place, that of course increased production is a byproduct of that. So it's been a very rewarding process, seeing the results and just the conversations that I now have with these agents. Like, I know everything about them. Like some of the stuff they're talking about, I'm like, man, I don't even know all this. Like that's a little like we like crazy stuff. But like my relationship with them now is so deep, and they like, I mean, they trust you, but they believe 100% that you got their back, that you care. And I just know that the legacy that I leave behind and the impact that I ultimately want to make in the world, it's done through people, not results. Like 8,000 policies in 3.5 years, it's awesome, but I won't be remembered for that. I'll be remembered because of the people that I made an impact on, the people that I poured into, and the people that I made feel important. And so that, to me, relationships is everything.
The consistency and discipline. I mean, it changed everything.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I had this morning, the alarm went off at 5:15 and I'm like, I do not want to go to Orange Theory this morning. I'm tired. I don't want to. And I started thinking it through. I was coming up with the excuses, and I said, if I don't go there, I'm going to have the shittiest day ever. And I ended up going. I was 3 minutes late, but man, I know that it has to be done, because the second you let it slip, right? The second you give in to your bullshit, it just that slippery slope.
Absolutely. There's a guy that lives here in town who we've done a lot of stuff with here. His name's Tom Shea, and he's got a book called Unbreakable. He was a 23-year Navy SEAL, incredible human being. His story, this book Unbreakable, is just, it blows your mind, the stuff that he went through as a Navy SEAL. But he talks about excuses, and that they are subtle, seductive, and believable. So they just, they creep in, and it's just very subtly just this idea of, well, I worked out pretty hard yesterday. I'm kind of sore, I'm gonna work out tomorrow for sure. It just kind of starts creeping in, and then it becomes seductive. You're like, man, it feels really good in this bed. Like, man,
So
like
comfy.
it would feel so good not to do this. Like I could get some extra rest. I need some sleep. I went to bed late. But that second that it becomes believable, you're done. It's over. And so it's, a lot of that is your self-awareness and being able to be aware when those things are creeping in, and not letting it get to that seductive, and certainly not letting it get to where it becomes believable. And it's been powerful in my life. Like I can think back to certain times where a lot of it is with like diet and workout related. It's always the easiest to realize or remember, or to use as an analogy, but like different times where, I'm leaving a meeting, it's super late at night, and I crushed it that day in business, and think to myself like, man, I've done so good today. I deserve to eat some fast food on the way to my hotel. Like, I've eaten good all week. This like starts creeping in. Like, what's one combo at Wendy's gonna really do? And I'm like, man, I haven't had a spicy chicken sandwich in like a year. That would be amazing. And then you just like this gets seductive, and you're like, man, like I feel like I've seen 4 Wendy's, the last 10 minutes. And then the second that you believe it, the second you're like, you know what, I deserve like this idea. Like I've worked so hard. I deserve to be able to eat, something that I'm going to enjoy. And being able to be aware of that in that moment and be like, crap, it's happening again. Like
Yeah.
I can't give in. And obviously you're not going to do the right thing every time, but if you can just be aware enough to have a few of those times where you choose the right thing, it's amazing that the impact that it makes, compounded over time.
I mean, you've been busy. You have been busy. Um, but
Lost you.
Oh, there we go.
There we
Cut
go.
out.
Still can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Turn on your AirPods.
That's on.
He's the technical guy too. Nothing. Oh, I don't want to take his spot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what it could be.
Should be on. Switch it.
There we go.
Hello.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It was Zoom. Zoom froze on me. Where was I?
You said you've been busy.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been busy. There's so many things I wanted to ask you, but honestly, like now that we're talking about relationships and all this stuff, so you're doing so much stuff. Um, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I know that came into play at some point, and it's like you're spending so much time doing all this other stuff. Um, how did you fit, your wife, your kid, and everything into the kind of the same model that you have created on the business side?
It's a constant evolution. I think it's pretty fluid, and I think everybody goes through seasons in life where you got to do what you got to do. For me, obviously at the beginning when I didn't have, there was no contingency plan. Like I had to make this work. I was broke, and yeah, that was it is what it is. I got to go do this, and I got to make it happen, and I'm going to be gone a lot, and that just is what it is. Luckily my wife is extremely independent. She's extremely strong. She's worked since she was like 13 years old, 12 years old. She was very busy with her job as well. We didn't have a kid when I first started. Um, so it certainly wasn't ideal. I mean, over 200 nights in a hotel for 3 straight years. I think it was 238 nights that third year. Certainly not ideal, but like anything, it becomes normal. I would leave like very late Sunday night or really early Monday morning. The only reason for that is my territory, and because this isn't normal within our business, I'm only one of like 2 or 3 people that was this way. When I came on board, there wasn't a territory available where we lived. So the nearest territory was in Georgia, and we could either move to Georgia or stay and I travel. And we just absolutely love where we live. We live in Greenville, South Carolina. It's just one of the greatest cities of all time, and just wasn't willing to move. So it's self-induced, like completely, which made it also a little bit easier. So I would leave late Sunday night, early Monday morning, get on the road to Georgia, and I would always come back usually Thursday morning, or sometimes Wednesday night, but usually Thursday morning, afternoon. And we would have our weekend, and then I would leave Sunday night or Monday morning, and it just became routine. I remember people like at church and stuff used to joke and say that we were going to, have the longest marriage of anyone because the collective amount of time that we were together was so much less than everybody else. However, I've always, and there's, certainly seasons where you're better at this than others, but I've always been very cognizant of and been very purposeful in trying to be all in when I'm at home, all in when I'm at work, this idea of being all in all areas. I think the problem in our society is we have a 90% of people that are kind of halfway in everywhere. And you can't really be off if you haven't truly been all the way on. And so when I talk about those spurts as like bursts of activity, so I'd leave Sunday night and I would work, I'm out of town. Like, what am I going to do if I'm not working? I'm by myself. Like anything that I could do not working was either going to get me in trouble or was going to involve like eating stuff I wasn't supposed to eat or like doing stuff I wasn't supposed to doing. So I just worked like literally 20 hours, 16, 18, 20 plus hours. That's all I did was work. But when I came home, it gave me the ability, because I was all the way on for those 3 or 4 days, it gave me the ability to be completely off when I was with my wife, because I wasn't thinking about all the things I didn't do. I wasn't thinking about the things I needed to catch up on the next week. I could be at peace. I could truly rest and be fully present at home. And so, I had friends that they would say stuff to me like, you have a wife, and especially when I had my daughter, you've got a wife and daughter, like you can't be traveling like that. And I would, always challenge them and say, man, I know your life, I know my life, and I promise you, 200 nights in a hotel, I promise you I spent more quality time with my wife last year than you did, and you were home every night. And so to me, it's all in how you're using that time. And, things just become, normal. They become routine. Certainly things got more difficult with my daughter for sure. And, not so much when she was a baby, because I mean, let's be honest, like eat, sleep, poop, that's, it's not, there weren't memories there that like she was missing out on. So it was a little bit easier for me to leave Sunday night or Monday morning than it is now when she's 2.5 and she's, just full of personalities, an actual human being now. And so it's, it's that certainly played a role too, but it gets more difficult and priorities change. And, I just knew that I had this period of time, this window of time where, especially when I had my daughter, like those first 2 years, that I could set myself up by putting in so much effort and so much work into a couple of years that would set our lives up to be able to live, a very different lifestyle forever moving forward. And so that's what I did. But, I think it's all about your priorities. It's all about, again, being all in all areas. There's a big difference between being present and being available. My daughter, even at 2.5, if I'm on my phone, like I've started to notice, like she'll like lean her head in, like in between my head and my phone. And so this idea of like listening with your eyes, like I'm the best multitasker in the, like, as far as doing stuff on social media and engaging in a full conversation. My business partners drives them crazy, but like they understand now that I'm listening to everything and I'll respond when needed, but I'm like posting something or commenting on something. So being cognizant of that now with my daughter and my wife, and that's probably the biggest struggle for me is putting down the phone, because so much of my life is on my phone with social media and all the stuff that we're doing. So it's a constant process. It's certainly fluid. I don't think anyone should, or really even could, but I don't think anyone should give other people advice on what work-life balance means for them, because it's so specific to our scenarios, our situations, our family structures, and all the things that we have going on. I think for me, I'm just a little bit tired and frustrated of this idea of work-life balance always being used as a crutch why you need to work less. Like you don't
Right.
really ever hear work-life balance being discussed in regards to needing to be at home less. Like, I crushed it as a father last quarter. I really need to work more this quarter. Like that never happens. It's always used as like, man, I really need to leave work, an hour early every day or something like that. And so I just think that the truly, truly successful, like the extraordinarily successful, will balance through addition, not subtraction. Like if you need to be at home more,
Mm.
be at home more. It may mean, you need to sleep less or do less extracurricular activities, but it certainly doesn't mean you need to work less. I think we have so much time if we were to truly audit that we're wasting throughout a day that we can find an hour, 2 hours, probably 3 or 4, if we're honest with ourselves, that we can reposition into more income producing activities to where we can be at home whenever we need to be. The most successful people I know are home at 3 o'clock, home at 4 o'clock, take their kids to school. And it wasn't on accident that happened, but it's because they placed a priority on that. And for me, last year, it was the first time I ever hired a coach, and never really even considered that dynamic before, but it was really a breakthrough for me and my priorities because all the stuff I'm doing online, all the social media stuff, for me it was all about legacy. And the first time I hung out with my coach and really just sat down for a full day going through my whole life, and he just kept asking, why are you doing all this stuff? Like what is all this stuff you're doing, ultimately for? And the fact that I'm not monetizing it, which everyone thinks is crazy, and certainly he thought was crazy. And I just kept saying, legacy, it's all legacy, it's all legacy. My daughter's gonna be able to watch these videos forever. Like she's gonna know, all this stuff. And ultimately I came to realization that day, after about 11 hours of digging through, why was I really doing all this stuff, and what, ultimately was the legacy I was trying to leave. My coach left and he said, hey, just want you to write what you're thinking for the next 20 minutes. So I'm going to come back. And he came back and he said, all right, read what you wrote. At the top of the page, I wrote, what type of legacy am I really leaving if my daughter's going to have to watch these videos to hear the things I should be telling her in person? And that was a truly pivotal moment for me. And I went from being on the road 238 nights that year to I came home for 7 months, and created a scenario within our organization. It was good timing within our organization, as it was a logical time for me to step out of the field and go more to the management and training side anyways. But priorities change, and you adjust accordingly. But
Mm.
ultimately I think we have to focus on what makes us happy. you know
Yeah.
that to me is so important. Like there's so many more things that I could be doing, so many opportunities that I'm turning down, so many things that I would love to pursue, and opportunity cost that's out there. But I'm just extremely happy where I am right now, and I'm extremely grateful for the life that I have right now. And I'm patient. And so, you know, to me, that's what it's all about.
So when did you start the social, going all in on social? That was, I believe, January of 17
Yep. So
for you.
like 27 months ago. Yeah. So basically going from being flat broke to 300,000 to 450, realized after that second year that the biggest mistake I had made was not documenting my life. The fact that I don't have a video of me at rock bottom haunts me. But is what it is. The next biggest mistake would be not documenting it moving forward. And to be honest with you, looking back, like I don't know if I had been documenting, if I would have had the level of success I would have had, because it probably would have been a distraction during that pivotal, period of time in my life. So, I think everything happens for you. And I think that that's probably why that happened. But went all in, completely all in once I decided to document my life. And the reason I did that was because I saw this gap on social media. If the average person wanted to go online, specifically to social media, and learn something, to get motivated, to be inspired, they only had two types of people they could go to. The first was the extremely successful, the multi-millionaire, which is awesome, but because of their
Mm.
lifestyle, infrastructure, it's just not relatable. It's great, like the Gary V's, the Andy Frisellas, the Ed Milet's, the Tony Rock, like all those people, they're fantastic. You can learn a lot from them, but it's still not relatable. Like, that's great for them. Doesn't mean so much for me. Then you had the second type of person on social media that you could go to, which was the person that was completely faking that they were that. And I just didn't see anybody in the middle. Like, I just didn't see anybody that was telling the real story, that was going out there documenting the good, bad, and ugly, that was being transparent, that was being vulnerable, and that was talking about the fact that it's insanely difficult. That's the reason why I love Gary and Andy, is because they at least talk about back then when it was so difficult and such a struggle growing up. Like Andy Frisella, talking about the first 6 or 7 years, didn't make over $700 a month. They did over 200 million in revenue the last few years. So I love that they keep with that narrative, but still where they're at in life now, it's just hard to relate. So I wanted to document the whole process in the, with the ambition of one day, obviously wanting to be the multi-millionaire that shouldn't be relatable, and having ideally over that time, as I level up and as I level up, be able to have other people level up with me, which is great. But at the very least, have those people have watched the entire process play out. So when I get to a point where I should not be relatable, I will be, because they've either watched the entire thing play out, or they can watch the entire thing play out, because all this stuff will live on forever. Like, they'll be able to go to the Facebook videos from January of 2017. That was like my mom and a random dude from high school and some stranger on, not saying anything, and I'm super awkward and nothing eloquent. And they'll see the post that didn't get likes and didn't get shares and didn't get comments. They'll see, the videos of me. I did a lot of live content because I just felt it was the most transparent. You can only fake it so long when you're live. And I wanted that aspect. That's why I built Facebook bigger than Instagram, was because I started there. And, the videos of me in the parking lot outside my hotel, going to my hotel room for the 10th night in a row, literally in tears, crying because I just wanted to go home. I miss my family. I miss my daughter. I'm like, why did I set this huge goal for myself to be gone for 11 days and to sell these policies? It's stupid. And, the real stuff, talking about, my difficulty with alcohol my entire life and quitting drinking 17, 18 months ago, like talking about all the stuff. And in the way, and in the process, hopefully creating a scenario where people could feel like they really knew me, really knew everything about me, knew my intent. And, then later on down the road, when I shouldn't be relatable, they'll be like, oh, that makes sense, because look at all the stuff he's done over the last 20, 30 years that we've been able to watch, that we've been able to almost participate in, which I truly believe in.
That's awesome, man. And what does your daily schedule look like? I mean, you're very methodical. So what does your social media strategy look like on a day?
Social media strategy, we certainly have things that happen on a daily, weekly basis. But I mean, I post everything. I've got a team now. I've got, a videographer that travels with me, video editor that creates like one of my Instagram stories. If you go to my Instagram stories, like one of them's like super professional. The others are just like me on the fly. She creates that. She creates the Road to Legacy vlog, which I absolutely love. It's the coolest thing about this whole documenting process, is she's able to create this vlog with footage from the last 2 years. Like, there'll be a video from me yesterday, and then next clip is me 2 years ago. Next clip is me from a month ago, all talking about the exact same topic, which is incredible for me to be able to watch, hopefully for other people to watch as well. And then some other video content, a lot of the previews and stuff for the podcast. And then I've got a graphic designer that really his main function is project manager. So he's overseeing all this stuff. But I write all the copy. I post, like, when I want to post it, I schedule it when I want to schedule it. I really don't schedule that much stuff. I really do it a lot on the fly. I've got access to it in a folder because, I just never know. Like, I don't, and it's not like, I don't really think it's a trust issue, because I trust my team completely, but I do a lot of things off of feel. And like a second ago, like the reason I was late was because I just got done recording a podcast with this guy, and just something happened and it really hit me. I felt like I needed to put a message out. And so not super professional. I just recorded myself on my phone real quick talking about this conversation and posted it right before I jumped on this podcast. Um, so things like that like just hit me, and I'm like, oh man, I need to write that. I need to record that and put it out. Some of the stuff is super scheduled, regimented, like Sales Wolves podcast comes out on Sales Wolves Wednesday, as cheesy as that is. Comes out every Wednesday. Um, you know, Road to Legacy comes out 5 days a week, usually at like 8 p.m. But everything else, man, it's really on the fly. It's really just kind of whatever I'm feeling that day, that week, that month. But the big thing for me is the consistency of knowing that there's going to be at least 3 posts a day, no matter what. Over 5,000 pieces of content in 26 months that we've put out.
Remarkable.
And it's just, there's no trick to it, hack to it, secret to it. It's just, it takes forever. Like sometimes someone will be like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, I'm trying to put this freaking post out. It's like, and like, I'm trying to edit this one little thing on it, because I'll still create a lot of this stuff myself, just using apps.
Yeah.
It takes a long time. Like like right before we got on here, like I made that video, but then I put in this little Videorama app and, made some adjustments, and I wrote out the copy, and then I posted it to Instagram. Then I natively posted it to Facebook. Then I posted it to LinkedIn. And I went back and added the hashtags into the comments. Then I tagged the people. Then I added it to my stories from my feed. Like that's 11 minutes that took me to do that, just to post it. No less to create it for 20 minutes before then. But it's just, I love it. Like I enjoy it. I enjoy that process. It's really enabled me to kind of scratch this creative itch that I've always had. And so I enjoy that part. And that for me is like my fulfillment in life. Like I love what I do because that has become a majority of what I do on a daily basis. And the thing that I love doing, I get to do, and my business partners support it, even when they don't understand it, which means the world to me, and will be ROI positive for them in the future, I assure you. But like there were times in the beginning, my business partners were always very, very, very good, especially Joseph, the CEO of our company. He was very, very smart in knowing most people like me that come into sales but have this entrepreneurial spirit, they're going to get bored. They're going to have things that they're going to want to pursue. He's always done a very, very good job of allowing me to do things to an extent that it never felt like I was being told, no, you can't. It was always like supported, even when it didn't make sense. Like this social media stuff for the first year made no sense to anyone. Like, why is he spending all this time? Money? I mean, we spend a lot of money on ads, a team of people. And I'm so grateful that they've allowed me to do that. But also on the flip side, I know that the return long term and what it's going to do for our business and what it's going to do for our lives is going to be incredible. But they've been very, very good with me on that. What it's resulted in short term is it's how we recruit all of our agents, people that follow my content. And then we run a couple ads every now and then on the opportunity to come work with us. And that's literally the only place we've hired people for the last year and a half. We get
cool.
We get like 10 to 30 applications a day for people that want to come work with us. And now we've got an incredible process to refine that down to making sure we bring on the right people. And so, but that was a completely unintended outcome. Like never thought that would be something that would happen. It was very fortunate for me that it did, because it, certainly helps me justify all the time I'm spending on it that goes directly towards future revenue into the business.
Was that the turning point for your partners? It's like, holy crap.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's the only way that I'm still doing what I'm doing at the level.
Filling that candidate pipeline that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's even more powerful because a lot of these people, if they've been watching my content, especially last year and the year before, they see the hard work that goes in, and they see the reward. So they come in like, our agents that start now versus our agents that started 4 years ago, like they're expecting to make 300 grand their first year. And they've, watched how grueling it is to get there, which is, very, very unique, for them to get, an inside look at something into, an opportunity that pops up that they didn't even, realize, was available to them. They're like, oh crap. Like this last recruiting ad that we just ran, I just created, was probably the first time I've really said like, hey guys, like this is literally the career. Like my whole story from 0 to 300 to 450, like this is the exact job. It's available in these territories. And if you're interested, great. And it's been pretty powerful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But the social media stuff, like it's evolving. It's a lot of fun. It's challenging. It's frustrating at times, but it's where everything's headed. And I just believe that over the next 3 or 4 years that we have this land grab and that people will never, ever, ever, ever be able to catch up after that. That you can create this momentum to where the people that finally get it, because nobody got it. Like it wasn't just my business partners. My wife didn't get it. My parents didn't get it. All of my friends didn't get it. They made fun of me for the longest time and probably still do. But but there's been some incredible moments here, recently where people have finally, understood now that they're seeing some of this stuff, come to fruition and some of the impact that's being seen now. They're like, man, I had no idea what you were doing this whole time, but man, it's pretty cool. And that's been pretty special for me. But I just know, for me to make the biggest impact in my life, I have to document and share, my gifts and I take it really seriously.
Yeah, that's what I was really stoked to see you doing this, because coming from an insurance side, there's nobody that's really doing it on the insurance side. And what's cool is, well, I would almost say that most people in insurance are kind of crushing it. They get lazy. To do something like this is putting in a ton of effort on something that's non-monetary right now. And it's needed, especially for newer people that are getting involved in insurance. And it's such an old industry. When I took over this office, there was file cabinets and files everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a sexy business, especially.
Oh yeah. And those people are all about to retire and die and quit. There's a giant gap coming in insurance agents in the US. Like who's going to fill all these offices? Who's going to fill all these, seats? And yeah, I think it's certainly unique. The thing I love about it is because, I don't really market or target insurance specific stuff at all. But I love that it gives me this ability to have a platform to speak on about personal branding in general, because the number one excuse people always get is, well, what if what I do isn't that interesting? I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that, because I sell freaking life insurance. There's nothing less interesting. Like there's nothing less interesting than what I actually do for a living. But I don't talk about what I actually do for a living. I talk about the universal skills and lessons and pillars that ultimately create success. And the reality is, you can do interesting stuff outside of the 1/3 of your life you spend working. Like if you want to be more interesting, then probably you should do more interesting stuff. And it's really, in a weird way, kind of forced me to do more interesting stuff. Like there's been times where I've been doing stuff, like especially when I had the daily vlog last year, like out in the desert of Vegas, like riding these ATVs, and I just like looked around for a second. I'm like, I would not be doing this, 100% would not be doing this if not for we just wanted to create some cool content. Because I was going out to this festival, this conference I was speaking at in Utah. The idea of like, well, how about we fly in that morning and then fly into Vegas, go ride ATVs, and then drive from Vegas to Utah, then go to the conference. Like that would have not made any sense. It would have never popped into my brain until content creation came about. But the next thing you know, I'm freaking as happy as can be, screaming, flying around this ATV. I'm like, this is work, today. And so it's forced me to do more interesting things, to be more interesting. So that's been certainly a good, consequence of all this stuff. But yeah, you're right. There's really nobody in the insurance space. I don't really think doing it. I love what Ed Milet's doing. I love his message, but there's something very different about someone that's worth $480 million coming on the scene. Of course, he's going to blow up. Like,
Yeah.
he's top 50 under 50 net worth in the country. Like, if he didn't come on board and dump a ton of ad spend and blow up, then it's impossible. It's a statistical impossibility that it wouldn't. Now his intent is incredible. Like, he's got such good content, and all that he's doing. He doesn't really ever talk about insurance, maybe because he's with WFG and that's kind of a soft subject for him, I guess. The fact that it's MLM, and the taste that a lot of people have in their mouth about that, but he doesn't ever talk about insurance. He's an insurance guy through and through. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it's probably that. It's that people don't think that when the world, like, who am I? What am I going to talk about? What am I going to get on here and talk about, this policy I just sold, my neighbor? There's nothing people want to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, I know we've taken up so much of your time. I want to thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Tyler.
Awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, this is, it's always fun, man. And it's always, I'm big on gratitude. And anytime I can tell my story, it reminds me of, that story. Cause that's what I love about it, is cause, it was just 4.5 years ago. That is a small window of time for my life to have changed like this. And I love telling my story because it keeps me grounded in remembering what it was like. And it keeps me empathetic and compassionate for others that are there right now. And it's just like this constant reminder of just being grateful for what you have, for what you've gone through, and wanting to help others be able to realize, like, whether they're in it or headed towards it or coming out of it, that, if you go out and you just put a crazy amount of work into anything, you can succeed, you can live an extraordinary life. And I think that gets lost in a lot of social media, the actual aspect of the effort that goes into it. And I think that, the only way to change that is by people going out there and spreading the truth. So.
Yeah, I love that too. That it's been in such a short period of time. And Craig and I have similar stories as to yours, where we kind of hit rock bottoms, alcohol and stuff like that. And it's, I love the comeback story. It's just,
yeah. I mean, I certainly love it. I don't want to experience it again, but I'm not ignorant to the fact that I probably will, like, at some point. Like, it is what it is. But it was frustrating the other day when the whole thing about Kylie Jenner came out, being a billionaire and all that. It's so funny, like, seeing how people react to other people's success. Like, that's one of my big things, is you always need somebody in your life that you can brag to and that just cheers you on. Like, I've got a few people in my life that, I could call and be like, dude, you're not going to believe how many policies I sold today. This is how much the commission was. And that are genuinely, like, excited on the other end, like, holy crap, that's incredible. Like, you need people like that in your life.
Yeah.
And I just get so, tired of people that somehow, it's just this lack mentality of thinking that because somebody else was successful, did something that somehow that, eliminates an opportunity for you. But all these people talking about Kylie Jenner, and I saw this one guy, he posted something in the comments, was like, yeah, well, I'll be impressed when she loses it all and then rises back up. I'm like, okay. So you're telling me that this girl just became the youngest billionaire, but the only way that Jeff in wherever Arkansas you live in is going to be impressed by that is she's going to have to lose everything and come back for you to then give her a little bit of respect for what she's done. I'm like, that's just it's crazy. But I mean, it is the stories that you love to hear. I mean, I certainly would have, rather not have experienced it, but man, I'm so grateful for it.
So. Well, sometimes we need to. I mean, that's what pushes us.
Yeah, every single thing is necessary. Like my divorce, my wife having an affair, my business failing, my struggle with alcohol, like every single little thing was 100% necessary because I'm the husband that I am now because of it.
Mhm.
I'm the father that I am. I'm the business person that I am. So, even when things happen, like the other day, I had a terrible situation happen the other day for me. And as frustrated and as mad as I was, I literally in that moment, because of what I've gone through, was able to sit back and say, this makes no sense to me right now, but there is 100% a reason for this happening today. And I'm going to realize it in hindsight. And I just have to understand that, like, accept that as truth. Like, this was not supposed to happen today. Man, I don't know why. And it's super frustrating, but there is a reason why. And it'll make sense one day and just move on. Um, so that's a quality that only comes from going through experiences and having that hindsight, and
Yeah.
hopefully by documenting that type stuff you can give somebody else that intuition or give somebody else that quality to be able to hang on even when they haven't gone through it. And that's what I really want to do. Like, I want to find people that are about to go through something and get a hold of them so that they have a little bit of perspective when they're in it, and the people that are in the middle of a storm to be able to reach them and say, like, look, I know this doesn't make any sense to you right now, but I promise you that there will be a point in your life where you look back on this and you're so grateful you went through it, and that there's a blessing on the other side of it, but you have to become the person that can receive it. And this is your process of becoming that person. And I know you're going to say, screw you, and that sucks, but like, it's just truth. Like, I know it. And it may not be a month from now, maybe 10 years from now, but just trying to reach people that are going through stuff, because it's life is difficult, and any little hope that you can give somebody, and to me it's a responsibility.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Everyone's
100%.
going to get knocked down a whole bunch. So we need those people to help us.
Oh yeah.
Everybody needs help.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, and we need more people like us out there, that's for sure, especially in this industry, to shake things up and
Yeah.
make things a little bit more fun.
Well, hey, Tyler, we really appreciate you taking the time
Absolutely.
for a
You
long
are a
podcast.
really good dude, and you are always welcome on this.
Thank you. Well, I'd be happy to come back on anytime. This is what I love. I love talking about this stuff, and I just think of the one person that may listen to this that lives in Alaska, that could hear something that could make a little bit of a switch in their head, that all of a sudden 10 years later changes someone's life. And it's like, who am I not to, you know, take hold of
Yeah.
every opportunity like that. So
What a day and age that we live in. Like,
I know.
the best time. I always tell people this is the best time to be alive right
Yeah.
now.
I mean, we're sitting here talking about insurance and all this stuff. Like, I just did a podcast with a dude that has the largest dance channel on YouTube, but he's the coolest guy.
That's awesome.
He has over 2 billion with a B views on YouTube, 10 million subscribers on YouTube, 3.4 million followers on Instagram, 2.3 million followers on Facebook, and he dances. But his
Wow.
story is so
Awesome.
his story is so cool. It was so inspiring, and yeah, just like it's very surreal when I have these conversations. Like, I've just discovered that's the way I learn. I don't read. I hate reading. Oddly
Yeah, I
enough,
don't.
I love having books. I love buying books, but I hate reading, which makes no sense. But it's
Get
because
excited.
It's because I end up listening to them all. But like every year, my New Year's resolution, all these goals, I'm going to read a book a week, a book a month. And my brain, I just don't comprehend. I just don't read well. My ADD, I just can't focus. But what I've realized, audio is helpful. Video, I'm very, very visual, but I learn more through conversation and through experience. And so that's why I created my podcast, was to be able to have that conversation with that dancer from LA, an hour ago, and to be able to learn from his story and learn from the things that he's gathered along the way. And that stuff, for some reason, just like sticks in me. and I can bring it back. I can bring it back up on demand, like I would never be able to do in a book. And so, once you realize those things about yourself, you act upon them, and crazy things start happening, especially with social media. It's crazy. So
Well, on the last note, what has been the craziest thing that's happened to you that you're like, wow, I did not expect that?
I don't know. I mean, last week was insane for me. I went out to LA. I did 11 podcast interviews, and 11 of the most random conversations that were all so incredibly impactful. Like a guy that's been in Hollywood for 30 years, whose best friend is Jamie Foxx and Denzel Washington. Jamie's like the godfather of his daughter, and he's got an incredible, history and just life that he's lived. A painter that is just this unbelievable artist that has the coolest story ever. Entrepreneurs, a guy that was in the NBA for 11 years and now owns and runs an esports team that's just killing it in the esports arena, which I knew nothing about, that just blew my mind. And probably the most impactful conversation I've ever had in my entire life. There's a pastor by the name of Erwin McManus. He's the pastor of a church called Mosaic Church. And this guy, he's 60 years old. He's got more swag than any human being on this planet. He was probably wearing $6,000 worth of clothes. But it was like a camo jacket and like these very hard to find shoes. And like, he was a fashion entrepreneur. He's been a filmmaker, storyteller. He's got like 9 books. He's traveled, 40 different countries, and is just like every word that comes out of his mouth is just like the most wise, just incredible, eloquent thing you've ever heard. I've watched every one of his sermons, read his books, and to be able to like sit down with him for half an hour because of a random DM that he responded like 5 minutes later. Doesn't follow me, so I know it went to the other side, and how he responded, I had no idea. But the fact that I was able to sit there and talk to him for 30 minutes as though we had been friends forever, that was definitely a really surreal moment for me, because he is someone that I look at as like untouchable.
That's awesome.
And to be able to like just genuinely connect with and just joke around with, and it was powerful. So, I mean, there's so many circumstances like that, but the fact that like my best friends now are people that I've randomly met through Instagram, that we, DM'd, then a conversation, then, met up at a conference, and then now we talk like weekly, or daily.
That's
So,
awesome.
so social media, everyone wants to tell you that it's making us disconnected. We've never been more connected than, we've never been more connected. It's a tool like anything else. You can use it the right way or the wrong way. So,
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. That's what I tell
Awesome.
everybody. It's a tool. You can use it for positive or negative, just like anything else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Y'all have a good rest.
Thank you.
Hey, do y'all know Jay Atkins, by the way?
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha. He's a good dude. Really,
Yeah.
really good dude.
Yeah.
I met him in Miami and spent some time with him over at his office one time. I just remembered he was in that Allstate space.
Yep.
He's
Yeah.
he's a good dude, sharp guy. His wife is crazy on social media. Crazy. When I was with him the other day, his wife got paid like $70,000 to do like a 30-second video holding a Sprite can.
No way.
Like legitimately got paid like $70,000 to hold a Sprite can for 30 seconds on Instagram. Like she's
We just wait. The insurance dudes will be
Yeah.
holding a strike hand.
holding a pack of pens.
Yeah.
All righty. Y'all have a good night, man.
Your Insurance Dudes podcast is sponsored by Agency Vault, an industry leader in agency coaching, hiring and retaining top talent, and sales training with the 7-step trusted advisor sales framework. Are you up for the challenge? For $99, you'll get 28 days of access and an opportunity to join our private platinum coaching group. For more information, navigate to www.agencyvault.com.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Insurance Dudes. Hey, please subscribe. We got some really great stuff coming out.